Any advice, or what advice would you give someone today that aspires to be or is trying to get into business or is in the business and trying to get over? Because what do you think the keys were? The litmus test is just for the eyeball test, the charisma, the rap, the ability. So you had a lot of things going for you. But if you're trying to tell somebody how to get over, what would you say to them? Because I think everybody gets over in a different way based on the physical and mental abilities or capabilities they bring to the squared circle. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. We got the standard bearer of the WWE, and it's just such a different, it's almost like going out and catching, a big grouper out here when you go fishing, or catching a sea bass or something like that, or a sailfish. You're out in the wild. Every fish has a different personality. And when you reel it in, you're in for a different fight, as compared to going to, like, a buddy of mine, Steve Cardillo, just sent me 12 lobsters from a lobster farm.
The guy that makes the belts.
Yeah, right. And so usually when we go get lobsters, we dive for them down in Key West, and we pull them out of holes and cracks, and we're catching these wild lobsters. They're all different shapes and sizes. But all of a sudden, I get these 12 lobsters. They're all 2 pounds. They look exactly the same. So back in the day when you're getting over, you had a chance to go out and, in the wild, wild west, whoever was the quickest drawer, if you could learn from Stolen Cold or David Schultz or Ox Baker, you'd learn stuff as you're out picking stuff up. And everybody was different shapes and sizes, and they'd have a different read on how to get over. Nowadays, the standard bearer, you've got a bunch of people coming out of the same facility, being trained by the same exact people, learning how to hit the ropes the same way, with the same drop down high spot, and there's a certain way to roll and do that and the other. So I'm not saying they're all the same, but it's really hard for a person to develop how to get over when you're, coming out of the same environment. Like those 12 lobsters are all the same. People are getting trained the same by the same trainers. I don't know if these trainers are main event trainers, if they're preliminary guys, or just technicians, or guys that come in from not the wrestling world and train these people. I really don't know who's training them down there. But instead of getting over it, you almost got to get in the business and get by all that and get on the big stage. Well, before I had a chance to figure out how to get over before I got on the big stage. Now you get put on the big stage, and then when you're there, you better figure out how to get over. And they feed you the content as far as creative. Most of the time they feed you the verbiage. So somewhere in between all this, someone has to shoot the gap somewhere and figure out what really separates you and will get you over from just the other person that was trained the same way as you, that's getting handed the same version by the same guy that wrote the same thing for the other 5 wrestlers. So somewhere in between that stuff, there has to be instinct. You have to have some type of instinct to sniff out that edge, So a lot of guys go out there, like when I saw Kevin Owens, I saw him in NXT, and I watched 2 of his matches, and I watched him really grind. I watched him really chop meat, and I went, okay, there's a brother right there that's got heat. Everybody I talked to at the WWE wasn't real high on him like I was at the time. The look, a lot of things, that he didn't have going for him, they kind of pointed out. But I said, no, I'm telling you, you give this guy a chance to get over, he'll chop meat and he'll grind. And so I was kind of like betting on the farm, and I didn't even know Kevin. I just ran my mouth and I said, there's a guy in NXT that I saw then, so I think he could really get over. And back in the Wild Wild West days, it would have been a different story. This is how it works. Then we go from here to here to here, and Monday Night Raw, he still got over. He found that spot in between the cadence to shoot his angle and get himself over. So it's really hard. You got to have the first thing is to get by the rigmarole to get in the business. And then once you're in the business, you need to have all your feelers out. And you got to find that spot somewhere in the middle of what they want you to do and what is a little different that can change it. And then once I found out, if you got balls enough to shoot your own angle out there, they want you to grab that brass ring and run with it, because they may tell Stone Cold what they want. But once you get out there, whether it's shooting the bird or the beer or this and that and the other, you can shoot your own angle and take a chance and get over. That's how I would tell them. If you got a gut instinct for something and you think it might work, don't tell anybody, but go out there and try it.
I agree. I won't get into the it factor or the X factor, because I think some people are born with it, and some people you can be born with a little bit of it, but I also think it can be learned. Not everybody is just super charismatic, but there is that it factor that has turned them into a draw. Last question.